Welcome back to day 2 of the Yoga Challenge. I am so excited that you are continuing on with this program. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Tim Gordon, and I am very excited to show you some yoga poses that people of all different fitness levels can do. Now, I hear this all the time. As somebody who's been practicing yoga for a very long time, I had my own preconceived notions of what it meant to do yoga. Honestly, I thought that yoga was these really complex postures where people had incredible feats of flexibility, where they were, cramming their bodies into poses that made them look like pretzels, legs behind ears and all these other different kinds of funky things. And little did I know that there's so many very gentle, foundational, and I mean that, foundational, the beginning, the stuff that you're supposed to do, yoga postures that are really about showing up to your body and just breathing, being in the body and feeling your body. So I'm going to show you those poses today. Now, we claim this is for anybody of any fitness level. If you have some difficulties with things like standing, that's okay. Maybe you stand against a wall. Maybe you simply sit in your chair if you don't have the ability to stand. But we're going to be talking about some adaptations of these postures today as well. So let's go ahead and start with our first posture, which is mountain pose. If you're able to stand, I'd like to invite you to get up on your feet and just make sure that you have a little bit of a cleared area around you. Again, no yoga mat or special yoga clothing is required. Separating your feet about a hip's width apart, and that right there, that cue might be difficult for you. So let's go ahead, let's find a standing posture with your feet flat on the ground and make sure you're on an even surface. And let's go ahead and maybe bring your feet together, big toes together. And then let's just inch the feet apart a little bit until your feet are wide enough that they're not out past your hips, but that your feet are narrowly together. What we're looking for here with the feet being a hip's width apart is a steady posture. If you feel unsteady, you may wish to grab a chair on your left side or a chair on your right side and hold on to the backs of the chairs to steady yourself. Of course, if you use crutches, you may wish to use crutches to steady yourself. Alternatively, you may wish to go to a wall and use the wall to support you or leaning against the wall. Wherever you find yourself, allow your feet, perhaps bare, but definitely not in shoes, to spread your toes. Maybe wiggle your toes and notice the sensation in your feet. Let's bring our attention up to the knees. There's no need to lock the knees. The legs don't need to be perfectly straight, but we want to find some length in the legs. And notice your hips. Notice your alignment of your pelvis. And how you can play with this is maybe experiment with tilting your pelvis forward, almost like you can pour water from a bowl, and then maybe tilting your pelvis back a little bit. And notice how your spine gets involved with that movement as well. See if you can find a nice, even balance where your pelvis isn't tucked under, but also where your pelvis isn't leaning forward all the way. If you run a lot, you may have a pelvis that tilts in one direction or the other. If you're an athlete who sits and rows, you may have a pelvis that tilts forward quite a bit. Just pay attention to the fact that, hey, I have hips, I have a tailbone, I have a pelvis. Find some length through your spine and allow your arms, if you're not using any supports, to be splayed out from your body, palms facing forward. Maybe spreading your fingers. And notice the quality of balance in your body here. Experiment with leaning forward a little bit, putting more pressure into the balls of your feet, taking some pressure out of your heels, leaning back a little bit, putting a little more pressure into your heels, taking some weight out of the balls of your feet. And if you need to use those supports, that's okay. But allow yourself to be in your body, noticing what it feels like to be balancing here. Inhale to press through the crown of your head. Find some length in the spine. If you're like me and you have a sedentary job, my job is sitting in a chair and talking to people for a living, so I find myself hunched forward. I also do a lot of writing, so I find myself in this position where there's a bit of a hump in my neck. So maybe allow yourself to press through the crown of your head. Maybe opening through the chest, you broaden through the chest, you find your shoulders come wide, with your arms splayed out, your palms facing forward. There's a really beautiful study that was published by this wonderful author. It's an academic study on using yoga to treat folks who had a diagnosis of chronic pain, and another study that was done with folks who had a diagnosis of diabetes. And one of the titles of these studies was, "I Could Move Mountains." It's the strength that a participant felt that they gave in one of their qualitative feedback in one of the studies as they did this very simple yoga posture. Mountain pose is meant to help you root down through your feet, to stand tall, to have the stability of a mountain. And I wonder if you can imagine living in Rishikesh, the folks are visiting the north of India and seeing the mountain ranges off in the distance, waking up to an early morning practice, a cool, dewy morning as the sun is beginning to rise, and practicing this mountain pose with a gentle stare off into the distance gently. And see if you can allow your vision to be soft. No need to stare at the screen or to focus on any one point. And if you close your eyes, notice how that impacts your balance. This is our mountain pose. And if you don't feel strong and stable like a mountain, just notice that your mind comes up with judgments and evaluations. This practice is about you and finding what works for you today. Wherever you're at, in the famous words of a great philosopher, Taylor Swift, shake it off. Let's come down onto our backs. We're going to get into a supine posture called Shavasana. This is one of the very few yoga postures where I use the Sanskrit term for it, mostly because with the folks that I serve and the groups that I run, I don't tend to like the English translation of Shavasana. The English translation being corpse pose, dead body pose. So let's find ourselves in Shavasana. Shavasana is a relaxation, a passive supine posture. I'm going to invite you to lay flat on your back with your arms splayed out at your sides, palms facing up, and your feet splayed out. If you have any low back pain, you may wish to bring a bend to your knees, placing the feet flat on the floor, and experiment with the distance of your feet, maybe bringing your feet closer together, closer to the buttocks, further away from the buttocks. But allow yourself to find a place where you can take some stress off of your low back. You may also need to prop yourself up on a bolster or on a pillow in order to help with low back pain, and that again is okay. Here in this Shavasana posture, maybe lift your head up, lengthen through the spine, and then place your head back down on the floor. Allow yourself to feel your body being supported by the earth. And notice any places that you may be carrying tension. A place that I oftentimes carry tension, even though it's not going to help me through a single damn yoga posture, is in my jaw. I notice myself clenching my teeth and tightness in my jaw. So I'm going to consciously, as I'm sharing this practice with you right now, I'm actually going to make an effort to just allow the muscles around my jaw to relax, knowing that it's not going to help me teach you some of these foundational yoga postures today. Allowing your arms to go heavy. If your knees are bent, just allowing your feet to press down into the ground. Allowing any tension to drop out of the shoulders and out of the back. Wherever you find yourself in this Shavasana posture, just find some stillness. Breathe. Be with your body. Notice what it feels like to be in this posture. And if distractions arise, acknowledge them. See if you can specifically point out what distractions are dragging you off. Maybe it's a sensation, a thought, or a feeling, maybe a memory. But whatever's showing up for you, notice it. Without any need to manipulate the breathing, notice that you're breathing. Notice how even as we find stillness in this Shavasana posture, the breath, like a faithful friend, is always there, always moving, breathing in and breathing out. Notice where you feel the breath in your body. And wherever you're at in this posture, bringing some motion into your body, like a wiggle of the fingers, rotation of the wrists. Maybe wiggle your toes, rotate through your ankles, maybe move the head from side to side. Rolling over onto your right side. Use your left arm to prop you up. And we're going to come into a four-legged posture. And with your knees about hips width apart, I'm going to invite you to widen your knees just a little bit wider and press back through the sit bones, pressing your arms forward. This is what we call a child's pose. It may be difficult for you to rest your head on the ground, so you may need a pillow or any type of prop. Like, for example, I always find a blanket or a towel folded as a really nice prop to help me get some length in the spine. And that's what we're looking for here, is a nice long spine. You may wish to reach the hands forward, spreading through the fingers. Or you may wish, if you have a nice long spine here and you're feeling comfortable, you may wish to draw the arms back parallel to the body. The object here isn't for your hips to press all the way back and for your butt to make contact with your ankles. The object here is for you to find some relaxation in this posture, to feel some length through the spine, and to be in your body, to breathe and notice the sensations of being here in this pose. Breathing in, noticing if you can feel the breath in the low back. We spend a lot of time In meditation, noticing the sensations of breath in the belly or in the chest, but notice where you feel the breath in the back. It may be especially easy in this posture where you're leaning forward with your head resting down. And coming out of this posture, bringing your hands forward, putting some weight into your hands, spreading the fingers to protect the wrists, coming back onto all fours. Let's come to standing. Do one last standing posture before we begin to wrap up this practice. So we started with mountain pose. We moved into shavasana, a supine resting pose. Then we transitioned into a little bit of a forward fold over there with our child's pose. Now let's do a little bit of a back bend. So from standing, let's go ahead and bring your feet hips width apart. So again, remembering that you can have your toes touching together and then start to inch the feet out. Start to notice where tension comes into your body. You don't want your stance wide-legged. You want your legs nice and close, stacked underneath your hips. Finding some length through the spine. Standing tall, maybe even adopting a mountain posture here. Inhale to press through the crown of your head. Exhale to tuck the chin. Broaden through the chest, really opening up, feeling the chest open. Without bending forward too far, without tilting that bowl and spilling water from the pelvis. Maybe spread your toes. Find your balance here. Using a chair, a table, or a wall if necessary to support your body. I'm going to invite you to lift both arms up above your head. And as you lift your arms up, you may wish to lift your gaze, but notice how that impacts your balance. And see if you can stay with your spine tall in lifting your gaze. You may have a natural tendency to lift your head all the way up, and then all of a sudden you start leaning back. See if you can just lift your gaze through your eyes, and then maybe just a little bit through lifting through your neck. Your chin follows up a little bit. And for me, where my arms are at right now, I'm feeling comfortable having my arms wide, but you may wish to bring your arms in, your hands come together. And just notice how that impacts your shoulders, your trapezoids, even your breathing. Maybe it becomes harder to breathe as your hands come together overhead. And whether your hands are wide, your hands are together, press through your fingers, lifting your gaze, leaning back ever so slightly, and only leaning back to the point where your upper body leans back. If you start to notice your knees or your hips getting involved, come back forward. Still with the gaze lifted, feeling your balance here. And if you're unable to keep both arms up, you may wish to keep one arm down with a hand on the back of a chair or on a table or on a wall for some balance. Just allowing yourself, in whatever iteration is possible for you, to have a brief standing back bend. Maybe wiggle those toes. Remind yourself, hey, I've got toes today. Maybe noticing your gratitude for the balance that your feet bring you, for the experience of proprioception we have through our feet. Inhale, reach a little further. Exhale, bringing the arms forward, followed by the gaze, bringing the hands back down. Let's end with our hands at heart center here. Take a breath. Notice what it feels like to finish off this standing back bend. All right. And one last time, shake it off. Let's make our way back down onto the ground. And this time you are going to need a wall. So please find a space that is free of any obstructions. You're going to need a floor that's free and a wall. You don't need a vast space. What we're going to do is have our legs up the wall into our final inversion, our last pose of this practice. Now, my favorite way to get into a legs up the wall is to have myself come and sit right against the wall, so with my hip against the wall. With my legs crossed, I then make my way onto my back and then working my legs up the wall. This way I don't find myself trying to scooch closer and closer to the wall. My butt is right up against the wall, and I can then move myself away from the wall to take off any tension off my back, or to stay up nice and close against the wall if that's feeling right. So, getting in nice and close to the wall with your left hip against the wall, you may wish to have your legs crossed, making your way onto your back, turning your legs up the wall. And from here, experiment with keeping the legs bent, your feet on the wall, or pressing through your heels, the legs come nice and long as the legs are supported by the wall. And if you notice any tension, or you feel your body sort of like an accordion being bunched up against the wall, that's probably not a good thing. Maybe just sort of inch yourself away from the wall. But I use that term carefully. Inch yourself. You don't really need to pull yourself far away from the wall. This posture is about having the back flat on the ground and the legs going up the wall, so we can enjoy an inversion here. Inversions are a really big foundational part of yoga practices and how we start to cool down and end our practice. You may wish to have the arms splayed out. Maybe experiment with having your hands crossed over the belly, or cactusing the arms onto the ground. And noticing any tingling sensations in the feet as the blood makes its way down. Maybe wiggle your toes. If you notice any low back pain, you may wish to grab a blanket or a towel and place it underneath the low back, folding it, and experimenting with different heights, seeing what's right for your body. And if you have mobility issues, and the best that you're able to do right now is to move over towards the wall, get on your back, but you're not able to extend your legs, can that be okay? Maybe getting some distance from the wall and just having your knees bent with your feet flat against the wall and enjoying as much of an inversion as you can have in this time, in this space. There is no need for your yoga practice to look a specific way. This is about your body. Your yoga practice can be as variable as you are. Just taking a moment here, enjoying the sensations of being in this inversion. Breathing in, noticing distractions. As we begin to end this practice, pause for a moment and reconnect with what it is that's important to you about doing this yoga challenge. And whatever shows up, my invitation to you is to be present to it. You may wish to maintain this posture for a few minutes after this video ends, but I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for participating in this practice. The light in me acknowledges and bows to the light in you. Namaste. These are the 5 poses that I recommend as a foundational yoga practice that anybody of any fitness level can do. If you feel like I've missed one that's important or one that you recommend or feel is especially relevant, comment down below. I would love to hear that. I realize that you may have your legs up the wall right now and it might be a challenge to get away from the wall, to come back over and to type that in, but I long to hear what works for you. Don't forget to subscribe to stay abreast of all of the updates on these yoga challenges, and definitely share it with your friends. We really appreciate you sharing your enthusiasm for this practice with the people that you know in your world who could benefit from this work. Thank you so much.